Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into a place of glamour, gossip and enough chemical fumes to strip the paint off a battleship, the 1960s American beauty salon. A magical realm where a woman walked in looking like a regular human being and walked out looking like a glamorous lacquered piece of architecture that could survive a rainstorm, a house fire and possibly a small meteor strike. Before we begin, a sincere thank you to the listener who suggested tonight's topic. I genuinely love the ideas you all send in, and honestly, this channel only grows because of the strange and wonderful corners of history you keep pointing me toward. So if you enjoy these late-night journeys, feel free to like the video and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy what I do here. You might like to know that membership's already available on the channel, which gets you a full 8 hours of ad-free video to fall asleep to. Uninterrupted. No sudden commercials yanking you back awake at the worst possible moment. And by the way, the channel is now on Spotify as well, so if you would rather drift off with just your ears, the link is waiting for you down in the description. Leave a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is for you, because somehow it is always around 2 in the morning for someone out there. Now dim the lights, switch on a fan for that soft white noise, get comfortable, and try not to breathe too deeply, because the air in this place is roughly 40% hairspray. Let's pause for a second. Have you ever wondered what it actually felt like to get your hair done back then? Could you sit perfectly still under a roaring dryer dome for 2 hours without slowly losing your mind? Would you trust a total stranger to set your entire scalp on fire in the sacred name of volume? Ever wondered how women slept without crushing a hairstyle that took 3 hours and half a can of lacquer to build? Could you survive a full week without washing your hair just to protect the precious dew? And what exactly was in that perm solution that made your eyes water from clear across the room? Well, wonder no more. Congratulations, you've just woken up in 1963. You have an appointment at 10 o'clock sharp, your rollers are already waiting, and there is absolutely no backing out now. Let's start with why you're even here. Because in 1963, getting your hair done is not a treat. It is not self-care. It is a solemn, non-negotiable weekly obligation, right up there with church and paying the milkman. You do not simply wash your own hair at home like some kind of barbarian. You go to the shop every single week, same day, same time, and you sit in the same chair until the beautician tells you that you may leave. Missing your standing appointment is roughly as scandalous as skipping your own wedding. And so, whether you feel like it or not, whether it is raining or snowing or the roast is burning at home, you go. Because the do must be maintained. Here is the strange logic of it all. Your hairstyle is not something you own. It is something you rent, weekly, from a professional, and the rent is due every 7 days without fail. This is because you're not washing your hair at home in between. Your careful set, lacquered into place, is meant to last the entire week, which means the entire week it slowly collects the smoke of your kitchen, the humidity of your bathroom, and the faint memory of every meal you have cooked. By day 6, it is holding on by sheer chemical willpower. By day 7, it needs professional resuscitation. Think of it like a car that must be serviced on a fixed schedule or it simply stops working. Except the car is your head, and skipping a service means walking around town looking, in the merciless language of the neighbourhood, like you've let yourself go. And letting yourself go is not a private matter in 1963. It is a public announcement. People notice. People talk. The woman 2 pews ahead of you at church notices the moment your curl starts to droop, and she will mention it, kindly, in a way that is not kind at all. So the standing appointment becomes the backbone of your entire week. Everything else arranges itself around it. Tuesday at 10 is sacred. You do not schedule a doctor over it. You do not let a school event bump it. Your husband learns quickly that Tuesday mornings he is on his own for whatever crisis arises, because you are unreachable, sealed inside a dryer dome, and you're not coming out until Dolores says so. there is comfort in it too, and this is the part people forget. The weekly appointment is a rhythm, a reliable island of adult conversation in a life that often does not offer much of it. For a couple of hours, you are not somebody's wife or somebody's mother. You are a client, waited on, attended to, poured a cup of slightly burnt coffee, and asked your opinion on things. In an era that gives women very little space of their own, the salon chair is a small, warm, hairspray-scented throne, and so you keep the appointment. You keep it in sickness and in health, in good weather and in blizzards, through good moods and bad. You keep it the way people keep promises to institutions larger than themselves. The bouffant is not merely fashion, it is discipline, it is belonging, it is proof that you are a woman who has her life together, one weekly set at a time. Now that you understand why you're here, let's actually walk through that door, though I should warn you, the air on the other side hits like a wall. It's time to step inside. From the street, the salon looks harmless enough, with its cheerful painted sign and a window full of black and white photos of women whose hairstyles defy several laws of physics. But the moment you open the door, you're hit with a wall of warm, humid, chemically enhanced air that clings to your face like a wet towel. Pink walls, chrome chairs, and a floor covered in tiny clipped hairs that no broom will ever fully defeat. Somewhere a radio is playing softly under the hum of a dozen dryers. This is not just a business. This is a temple, a courtroom, and a gossip factory all rolled into one. Let your eyes adjust because there is a lot to take in. The lighting is bright and unforgiving, the kind that shows every pore and does not apologize for it. The mirrors run the length of one wall, floor to ceiling, so that no matter where you look, you're confronted by yourself, and also by everyone else. All of you reflected and re-reflected into a small infinity of women in various stages of transformation. It is impossible to have a private moment here. Even your reflection has witnesses. The colour scheme is committed. Pink is not an accent in this room. Pink is a lifestyle. Pale pink walls, deeper pink vinyl chairs, chrome trim polished to a shine, and everywhere the gleam of stainless steel tools laid out in neat little rows like a surgeon's tray, if the surgeon specialised entirely in volume. It is feminine in the boldest possible way. A space designed so thoroughly for women that a man wandering in would feel roughly as comfortable as a cat at a dog show. Now, notice the sound, because the salon has a specific music to it. Underneath everything runs the low, steady roar of the dryer domes, a mechanical drone like a distant highway that never stops. Over that, the snip of scissors, the clack of rollers dropped into metal trays, the hiss of a spray can, and the endless, overlapping murmur of conversation. A radio plays somewhere, mostly drowned out, occasionally surfacing during a lull with a few bars of a love song before the noise swallows it again. And then there is the floor. No matter how often it is swept, and it is swept constantly, the floor is always lightly carpeted with clipped hair in a dozen shades, the confetti of everyone who came before you today. The broom fights a losing war. Hair migrates. It clings to shoes, to hems, to the legs of chairs. It is simply part of the ecosystem now, like sand at the beach. You stop noticing it within about 4 minutes. But more than the sights and sounds and the faint crunch underfoot, what you feel walking in is the atmosphere of the place, and it is unmistakable. This is a room that runs on ritual. Every woman here knows the routine, knows her role, knows exactly how the afternoon will unfold. There is a comforting sameness to it, a sense that this exact scene has played out every single day for years and will keep playing out long after you leave. You're not a customer walking into a shop. You're a worshipper arriving at a familiar altar. You take one more breath of that thick, warm chemical air, your lungs bravely accepting their fate, and you step forward toward the front desk. Because before any of the magic can begin, you must first face the woman who controls it all. Let's talk about the front desk, because that is where your fate is decided. Behind it sits a woman with a perfect helmet of hair, and an appointment book she guards like a dragon guards gold. She knows everything. She knows who is late, who cancelled, who is secretly going grey, and who has not tipped properly since the Eisenhower administration. You give your name, she runs a finger down the page, and then she says the 4 most dreaded words in the salon she is running behind. So you sit, you wait, you flip through a magazine from 4 months ago and pretend you're not slowly baking in the heat. The appointment book is the single most powerful object in the building, and she is its keeper. It's a large, worn ledger, its pages soft from handling, filled with names penciled into narrow time slots and crossed out and rewritten as the day rearranges itself. Nothing happens in this salon that is not written in that book. Your entire visit exists only because your name is in there, and if it is not, no amount of pleading will conjure a chair out of thin air. She controls the flow of the whole operation with a pencil and a raised eyebrow. She is unfailingly polite and completely immovable, which is a devastating combination. She smiles as she tells you the wait will be a little longer than expected. She smiles as she informs the woman behind you that there is simply nothing available until next Thursday. That smile has ended arguments before they began. You quickly understand that being kind to her is not merely good manners, it is strategy, because she remembers everything, and a woman who is rude at the front desk may find herself mysteriously always booked at the least convenient hours. And so you sit. Waiting in the 1960s salon is not a brief inconvenience. It is a discipline, an endurance event, a small trial you must pass to earn your hairstyle. The waiting chairs line one wall, and the reading material is a stack of magazines that have clearly been thumbed by 100 women before you, their corners curled, their covers proclaiming news that stopped being news several seasons ago. You read about a movie already out of theatres. You study fashions already slightly out of fashion. Time bends strangely here. The heat does not help. Between the dryers, the hot tools, and the general press of bodies, the salon holds warmth like an oven that never quite turns off. You feel it settle over you as you wait, a drowsy, close warmth that makes your eyelids heavy and your thoughts slow. You shift in your seat. You fan yourself with the outdated magazine. You watch the women ahead of you progress through their stages, and you calculate, hopefully, how much longer until it is your turn. But here is the secret about the waiting, the thing that makes it bearable. You're not really alone in it. The other women waiting are in the same boat, and boredom is a wonderful social lubricant. A comment about the weather becomes a conversation. A conversation becomes an exchange of news. Before long, the waiting area itself has become its own little parlour, humming with talk, and the time that seemed so heavy begins to move a little faster, carried along on a current of shared gossip and mutual complaint. Eventually, the receptionist looks up, scans the page, and calls your name at last. Your patience has been rewarded. You rise, slightly stiff, slightly overheated, and follow the beautician back, though before we go any further, we truly must deal with what your nose has been trying to tell you since you walked in. Now, before we go any further, we have to address the smell, because it deserves its own paragraph and possibly its own hazmat warning. Imagine ammonia, rotten eggs, and burnt hair had a baby, then dressed that baby in floral perfume and cigarette smoke. That is the perfume of the 1960s salon. The permanent wave solution alone could wake the dead and possibly reanimate them. Your eyes water. Your throat tightens. Somewhere in the back of your brain, a small voice quietly asks whether any of this is safe to inhale. You ignore that voice. Everyone ignores that voice. Beauty demands sacrifice, and apparently the sacrifice is your sense of smell. Let's break down this magnificent bouquet, layer by punishing layer, because it is more complex than any perfume ever bottled. At the foundation sits the permanent wave solution, built around ammonia and thioglycolate, a combination that smells the way a chemistry accident sounds. It is sharp, it is sour, and it has a distinct rotten egg undertone that lodges itself in the back of your throat and refuses to leave. This is the base note of the entire room, the smell everything else is layered on top of. Over that, the hairspray, clouds of it, released constantly throughout the day, a sweet chemical lacquer that coats not only hair, but the air itself, the mirrors, the counters, and the inside of your nose. It has a cloying, faintly floral sweetness that in small doses might be pleasant, and in Salon quantities becomes overwhelming, like being trapped inside a scented candle that someone lit and then set on fire. Add the cigarettes, because nearly everyone is smoking, and the smoke weaves through everything, softening the chemical edges into something hazier and greyer. Add the coffee, always slightly burnt, sending up its own bitter thread. Add the mingled perfumes of 24 women who each applied their favourite scent this morning. Add faintly the singed smell of hair meeting a hot iron a beat too long. Stir it all together in a warm, humid, poorly ventilated room, and you have an atmosphere so thick you could practically spread it on toast. Trying to describe it to a modern person is nearly impossible, because nothing today is allowed to smell this way anymore. It is like sticking your head into a freshly opened can of paint, while someone curls a doll's hair with a lit match nearby. It is like a nail salon, a gas station, and your grandmother's vanity table all having an argument in a phone booth. Your eyes genuinely water. First-time visitors have been known to step back outside for a gulp of real air before bravely plunging back in. And yet, here is the truly remarkable thing about the human body. You get used to it. Within 20 minutes or so, your overwhelmed senses simply give up and stop reporting the alarm. This is called olfactory fatigue, the same mechanism that lets you forget you are wearing perfume by lunchtime. Your nose, defeated, quietly clocks out. Soon you barely notice the fumes at all, right up until you step outside at the end, and your own coat, your hair, and your skin reveal that the salon has followed you home, soaked into everything you own. The regulars wear it almost like a badge. A woman leaving the shop trails that unmistakable scent behind her, and everyone who passes knows exactly where she's been. It is the smell of effort, of maintenance, of a woman who takes her appearance seriously. Terrible for the lungs, wonderful for the reputation. Now that your nose has surrendered, let's meet the woman responsible for all of it, the one holding the comb and this week holding your fate. It's time to meet the most important woman in your life. And no, it is not your mother. It is your beautician. She has been doing your hair for years. She knows your head better than your husband knows your face. She knows exactly how you like your curls, how much you can tolerate under the dryer, and every single secret you have ever accidentally spilled while she had you trapped in a chair. She's part artist, part therapist, part hostage negotiator. And when she picks up her comb and looks at your reflection in the mirror, you obey. Whatever she decides, that is what your head is doing this week. Understand the depth of this relationship because it is genuinely one of the closest you have. You see this woman every single week, without fail, more reliably than you see most of your own relatives. Over the years, she's touched your head more times than anyone alive. She's watched you go through pregnancies, celebrations, losses, and quiet, ordinary Tuesdays. There is an intimacy in someone standing behind you, hands in your hair, meeting your eyes only in the mirror, that loosens the tongue and softens the heart. People confess things to their beautician they would never say aloud anywhere else. She is a professional in the truest sense. Her hands move with the certainty of someone who's done this 10,000 times, sectioning, combing, winding, pinning, all while carrying on a full conversation and somehow also monitoring everything else happening in the room. She can tell from one glance at your roots exactly how long it has been. She remembers that you like the left side a little fuller. She knows you cannot sit under the dryer as long as most because you told her once years ago, and she simply filed it away forever. But her real gift, the one they do not teach in beauty school, is listening. For 2 hours you sit in her chair, and she absorbs it all. The worry about your daughter, the frustration with your husband, the small triumph you're secretly proud of but cannot brag about to anyone else. She nods, she murmurs, she offers the occasional bit of hard-won wisdom, and she never, ever repeats your secrets to your face, even the ones she has clearly heard about from 3 other clients. It is a delicate art, this discretion, and the good ones have perfected it. There is also a gentle power dynamic here that everyone quietly accepts, which is that in this chair she is in charge. You may arrive with a firm idea of what you want. You may have a photo. But if she squints at your face, tilts her head, and declares that the style will not suit you, the conversation is effectively over. She is the expert. You defer. It's a rare corner of a woman's 1960s life, where another woman holds the authority, and everyone treats that authority as entirely natural. And so she becomes something more than a service provider. She becomes a fixture, a confidant, a fixed point in the rotation of your weeks. Women stay loyal to their beautician for decades, following her from shop to shop if she moves, treating a good one like the treasure she is. To lose your beautician, to have her retire or move away, feels like losing a friend, because that is precisely what she is, even if the friendship happens entirely within the 4 walls of the salon. She snaps a cape around your shoulders, meets your eyes in the mirror, and asks how you have been. And as you begin to answer, you notice the whole room is doing the same thing, which brings us neatly to the true engine of this entire enterprise. Let's talk about information, because the salon is where all of it lives. Long before the internet, before group chats, before you could learn your neighbour's business with a single click, there was the beauty shop. Here, under the roar of the dryers, entire reputations are made and destroyed. Who is expecting? Who is drinking? Whose husband was seen where and with whom? The beautician hears it all and, with the discretion of a town crier, passes it along to the next chair. You come in for a wash and set, but you leave with a full briefing on the entire neighbourhood. It is the most efficient news network ever built, powered entirely by boredom and hairpins. Consider how information travels in 1963, because it is nothing like today. There is no instant anything. News moves at the speed of conversation, mouth to ear, chair to chair, and the salon is where an enormous amount of the town's conversation happens to be concentrated in one warm, humming room. Every week, a rotating cast of women passes through, each carrying her own small cargo of observations, suspicions, and confirmed sightings. The salon collects it, sorts it, and redistributes it with astonishing efficiency. The beautician is the natural hub of this network, and it makes perfect sense. She talks to dozens of women a week, one after another, each of them relaxed, chatty, and looking to fill the long minutes. She hears the same story from 4 different angles and can assemble the truth, or something close to it, better than any detective. She would never call herself a gossip, of course. She simply knows things, and she shares them carefully in the tone of someone merely making pleasant conversation, which fools absolutely no one and delights absolutely everyone. The topics follow a reliable menu. Who is expecting? and whether the timing raises any eyebrows, whose marriage is quietly cracking, whose child got into trouble, who suddenly has money or suddenly does not, who was seen at a restaurant 2 towns over with someone who was decidedly not her husband. The information ranges from perfectly innocent to genuinely scandalous, and it is all traded in the same easy, lowered voice tone, punctuated by little gasps and knowing nods. There is an art to participating too. You cannot simply take. To be trusted with the good gossip, you must contribute a little of your own, offer up some small morsel to keep the exchange balanced. But you must also be careful, because whatever you say here does not stay here. It cannot. The whole system depends on things not staying here. Say something in the salon on Tuesday, and it may well reach your neighbour by Friday, softened or sharpened depending on how many chairs it passed through along the way. And yet, for all its danger, the gossip serves a real purpose, one we sometimes forget when we sneer at it. It is how the community keeps track of itself. It is how people know who needs a casserole brought over, who is struggling, who deserves congratulations, who to keep an eye on. In an age before easy communication, this humming word-of-mouth network is genuinely how a neighbourhood stays a neighbourhood. It is care and cruelty tangled together, delivered in the same breath, under the same dryer. You settle into the rhythm of it, offering a little, learning a lot, feeling pleasantly plugged into the beating heart of the town. But your gossiping is about to be rudely interrupted because it is time for the first hands-on stage of your transformation, and it begins with your neck being bent at an alarming angle. Now it begins for real, starting with the shampoo. You are led to a row of chairs facing a wall of porcelain sinks, and you are instructed to lean back, way back. Your neck is draped over a cold, hard rim of ceramic that was clearly designed by someone who hated necks. This is the backwash bowl, and it is here that your spine learns the true meaning of suffering. Warm water blasts your scalp, strong fingers scrub with alarming enthusiasm, and you stare up at a water-stained ceiling wondering if your head will ever feel attached again. It is relaxing in theory. In practice, it is a light chiropractic emergency. Let's examine the sink itself, this instrument of gentle torment. It is a heavy porcelain basin with a curved notch cut into one side, and that notch is where your neck is meant to rest. In theory, the shape cradles you. In reality, the porcelain is hard, it is cold, and it presses a firm line straight across your vertebrae. There is no padding worth mentioning. Perhaps a thin folded towel if your beautician is feeling merciful. You lower yourself back, further back than feels natural, until your throat is stretched toward the ceiling and your neck is bearing the full weight of your head against unforgiving ceramic. The water arrives next, and it is a gamble. It comes from a sprayer that alternates, without warning, between pleasantly warm and either surprisingly cold or briefly scalding, as the plumbing makes its own decisions. You flinch. You're told to relax. You cannot relax because you are lying at an angle that no human spine was designed to hold, being sprayed by water of unpredictable temperature, with your neck slowly forming an impression of the sink's edge that you will feel for the rest of the afternoon. Then come the hands, and here at least there is something to enjoy, or there would be if you were not so distracted by your neck. The beautician works the shampoo into a thick lather, and scrubs with genuine vigour, fingertips digging in circles across your scalp, behind your ears, along your hairline. It is thorough. It is strong. It is the kind of scrub that says she intends to remove not only this week's grime, but possibly a layer of skin along with it. When she hits exactly the right spot, a shiver of actual pleasure runs down your arms, a small reward buried inside the ordeal. The rinsing is its own adventure. She cups a hand at your forehead to keep the water from streaming into your eyes, mostly successfully, and works the spray through your hair until it runs clear. Water finds its way into your ears anyway. A trickle escapes down the back of your neck and into your collar, cold and startling. You lie there, half drowned, staring up at that water-stained ceiling tile you now know intimately, cataloguing its every crack and discoloration to distract yourself from your aching spine. And then, mercifully, it is over. She wraps your dripping head in a towel and helps you sit up, and the world swims for a moment as the blood rearranges itself. Your neck announces its grievances. You rub it discreetly as she leads you to the styling chair. Somewhere in that fog of discomfort, a genuinely clean scalp is hiding, freshly scrubbed and ready for what comes next. And honestly, a clean scalp is a rare luxury when you only get it once a week. You settle into the styling chair, damp and slightly dazed, neck throbbing pleasantly, and the beautician reaches for a tray of small plastic cylinders. Do not relax yet. The rollers are coming, and they take no prisoners. It's time for the main event, and it involves an unreasonable number of small plastic cylinders. Your damp hair is divided into sections with military precision, and each section is wound tightly, and I do mean tightly, around a roller before being pinned into place. By the time she's finished, your entire head is covered in curlers packed so close together that you could probably pick up a radio signal. Every follicle is stretched to attention. Your eyebrows are now located approximately 1 inch higher than they were this morning. You have not even started drying yet, and already you look permanently cheerfully surprised. Let's appreciate the rollers themselves, because they come in a whole taxonomy of sizes and each has a job. The large ones create big, soft, sweeping curl, the foundation of volume. The medium ones handle the general body of the set. The small ones go in at the nape and around the face for tighter curl where it is needed. Your beautician selects among them with the instinct of long practice, building a plan across your scalp that only she fully understands, a blueprint of curl that will only reveal itself much later. The winding is where the real technique lives, and where the real discomfort begins. She takes a section of damp hair, combs it straight out from your head, lays the roller at the end and rolls it down toward the scalp, drawing the hair taut the entire way. Taut is the operative word. The tighter the wind, the better and longer lasting the curl, so she does not skimp. Each section is pulled snug against your head and secured with a pin or a clip that bites down to hold everything in place under tension. Multiply that by the several dozen rollers required to cover an entire head, and you begin to understand the sensation. Your scalp is being pulled in dozens of directions at once, every follicle drawn tight, the skin of your forehead subtly lifted. It is not painful exactly, not sharp, but it is a relentless overall tightness, like your whole head has been gently but firmly gift-wrapped. Blinking feels different. Your face feels stretched into a permanent expression of mild astonishment. Then come the accessories, and they add their own small torments. Little squares of tissue or mesh are sometimes wrapped around each roller to keep the ends of the hair smooth. Bobby pins and clips secure everything, and there are so many of them that your head takes on a genuine metallic weight. If you were to walk past a radio at this moment, you would half expect to improve its reception. You are briefly less a woman and more an antenna array with a hopeful expression. Sitting still through all of this is its own discipline. The winding takes time, section after methodical section, and you must hold your head at whatever angle she requires, tilting it left, tilting it right, dropping your chin, lifting it, following her wordless guidance through gentle pressure. Your neck, still recovering from the sink, is not thrilled about the new assignment. But you hold position, because a well-set head of rollers is the entire foundation of the day, and a rushed job now means a disappointing do later. At last she steps back and surveys her work. This bristling landscape of plastic cylinders covering every inch of your scalp, and gives a satisfied nod. You catch your reflection and nearly laugh at the sight. a fully grown woman crowned in curlers, eyebrows hoisted skyward, looking permanently delighted about everything. You are not delighted. You're tightly wound, literally. And now comes the part where they lower a machine onto your head and cook the whole arrangement into permanence. Now comes the waiting, and this time you do it inside a machine. You're guided to a row of chairs, each one crowned with an enormous helmet-shaped dryer that lowers over your rollered head like a spaceship coming in for a landing. Someone flips a switch, and suddenly you're engulfed in a roaring tornado of hot air. Conversation is impossible. Thought is difficult. Your scalp slowly cooks. For the next 45 minutes, maybe an hour, you sit there, sweating gently, flipping magazine pages you cannot concentrate on, marinating in your own heat like a very glamorous rotisserie chicken. Behold the dryer dome, one of the great icons of the era. It is a large rigid hood, usually mounted on a chrome stand or built right into the chair, and it descends over your entire head like a bell jar lowering over a specimen. Inside, a fan and a heating element combine to blast hot air down and around your rollers, driving out the dampness and baking the curl into a shape it will hopefully hold for a week. From the outside, a row of women under these domes looks like a lineup of thoughtful astronauts awaiting launch. The first thing that hits you is the noise. Once the dome is running, the roar fills your entire head, a loud, steady rush of air that drowns out nearly everything else. The gossip you were enjoying is gone, reduced to distant moving mouths you can no longer hear. You're sealed inside a private bubble of sound, cut off from the conversation of the room, alone with the roar and your own slowly warming thoughts. Then comes the heat, and this is the true test. It starts pleasant, even cozy, a warm envelope around your head on what might be a chilly day. But it does not stay pleasant. Minute by minute the heat builds, radiating down onto your scalp, warming the metal clips until they threaten to become uncomfortable, raising a light sweat along your hairline and the back of your neck. Your face flushes. You feel yourself gently poaching. The temperature dial has settings, but they seem to range from warm to warmer to why. Time behaves strangely under the dome. 45 minutes is a long stretch to sit almost perfectly still, sealed in heat and noise with little to do. You're given a magazine and you try to read it, but your attention keeps sliding off the page. The heat makes you drowsy, your eyes grow heavy. Some women doze off entirely, chins dropping, only to jolt awake wondering how much time has passed. It is a strange, warm, roaring limbo, neither rest nor activity, simply endurance. There are small ways to cope. You wave a hand near your face for a hint of cooler air. You tug your collar loose. You develop a sudden, intense interest in whatever magazine you were handed, reading the same paragraph 4 times without absorbing a word. You watch the other women, all trapped in their own domes, and share a rueful glance with the one across the way, a silent acknowledgement that you are both suffering nobly for the cause. And it is a cause, make no mistake. This baking is not optional. This is the step that transforms damp wound hair into set, sculpted, lasting curl. Skip it or rush it, and the whole do collapses within hours. So you endure the roar, the heat, the sweat, and the crawling minutes, because you know that on the far side of this ordeal lies the payoff. You are being forged, essentially, and forging requires heat. At long last the roar cuts out, the sudden silence almost startling, and the beautician raises the dome and touches a roller to check that your hair is bone dry. It is. You're done baking. Now the real artistry begins, and it starts with an act that sounds less like hairdressing and more like a scalp assault. Let's talk about the technique that defined a decade and prepare yourself, because it is violent. Once your hair is dry and the rollers come out, the beautician takes a fine-toothed comb and begins back-combing, or teasing, which is a polite word for aggressively shoving your hair backward against its will until it forms a tangled, poofy cloud. She's not styling your hair, she's fighting it. Each stroke rats the strands into a dense, matted foundation, the structural base upon which your entire hairstyle will be built. It sounds like tiny sandpaper. It feels like a mild scalp assault. And it is absolutely essential for what comes next. First, the rollers must come out, and this alone is a moment of small drama. She unwinds them one by one, and your hair springs free in tight, springy coils that bounce against your head. Dozens of ringlets that make you look, briefly, like a startled poodle. This is not the finished style. This is raw material. What you have now is a head full of curl and volume with no shape whatsoever, and shape is precisely what the teasing is about to impose through force. Here is the counterintuitive genius of the technique. To make hair look full and smooth and towering, you do not smooth it. You wreck it, deliberately, underneath. She takes a section, holds it straight up, and drives the comb downward toward the scalp again and again, pushing the shorter strands into a tangled mass at the base. This is backcombing, and each downward stroke packs more hair into a dense, cushiony foundation. It is the exact opposite of everything your mother told you about combing your hair, and it is completely intentional. The sound is unforgettable. Each pass of the comb through your hair produces a dry, ripping, sandpapery rasp. A sound that seems like it should not be happening to something attached to your head. Combined with the tugging sensation at your scalp, it triggers every instinct you have to flinch away. You do not flinch away. You sit still because this is the process, and the beautician wields that comb with the calm efficiency of someone who has teased 10,000 heads and never once been impressed by your discomfort. It does not exactly hurt, but it is far from pleasant. There is a persistent tugging, a rough dragging at the roots, an overall sense that your hair is being handled roughly by someone who means well. Section by section, she works across your entire head, building the teased foundation everywhere it is needed, until the top layer of your hair stands out in a wild, matted, gravity-defying cloud. If she handed you a mirror right now, you would be alarmed. This is the ugly stage, the scaffolding before the cathedral, and that is exactly what it is, scaffolding. The tangled mass she has created is not meant to be seen. It is the hidden structure, the internal architecture, the thing that will give your finished hairstyle its impossible height and body. Without it, hair simply lies flat, obedient and boring. With it, hair can be coaxed into shapes that seem to defy physics, held aloft by nothing but a foundation of deliberate tangles and very soon a great deal of spray. There is a cost to all this, of course, one you will discover later when it comes time to comb the teasing out, and you understand why so many women simply chose not to, preserving the whole matted structure for a week rather than face the reckoning. But that is a problem for future you. For now, the foundation is built. She smooths one hand lightly over the top of the chaos, tilts her head, and begins gently coaxing that wild cloud into a shape. The scaffolding is complete. It is time to build the monument itself. It's time to construct the monument. With your teased hair now standing at full volume, the beautician smooths the top layer over the poofy chaos beneath, shaping the whole thing into the towering, rounded silhouette of the bouffant, or if she's feeling ambitious, the mighty beehive. This is not a hairstyle, it is a feat of engineering. It rises off your head like a soft, elegant loaf of bread. It has height, it has presence, it enters rooms before you do, and once it is finished, you will not be tilting your head, ducking under doorways, or making any sudden movements for the foreseeable future. Watch how she does it. because the skill is genuinely impressive. Underneath, your hair is a matted disaster, all that violent teasing packed into a dense cushion. On top, she takes only the outermost layer of hair, the smooth strands she left untangled for exactly this purpose, and she combs them gently, carefully, over the chaos below. It is like upholstering a sofa. The lumpy stuffing does the work of holding the shape, and the smooth outer fabric hides it entirely, presenting nothing but sleek, rounded perfection to the world. The shaping itself is where her eye comes in. She's not simply making your hair big. She is sculpting a specific silhouette, judging proportion, deciding how high to take the crown, how to round the sides, where to let it curve toward your face. She works around your head, patting here, lifting there, coaxing a curl into place with the tip of the comb, stepping back to check the balance, leaning in to adjust. It is closer to sculpture than to grooming, and you are the block of marble. The bouffant is the everyday version, a graceful mound of volume, soft and rounded and flattering. But if you have asked for something grander, she may attempt the beehive, and this is a different level of ambition entirely. The beehive stacks the hair upward into a tall conical tower, high and proud, a structure so architectural it seems to defy the very concept of gravity. Building one is slow, painstaking work, and wearing one is a commitment. A tall beehive can add several inches to your height, which is thrilling until you approach a low doorway. As the shape rises, so does your awareness of it. You feel the height as a new presence above you, a soft weight you're suddenly conscious of carrying. You begin to understand that you and this hairstyle are now partners, and the hairstyle sets the terms. You will move more carefully. You will sit more upright. You will glance instinctively at door frames and car roofs, calculating clearance you never had to think about before this morning. There's real pride building alongside the hair, though. Watching the shape emerge in the mirror, seeing yourself transform from a startled poodle into something elegant and tall and composed is genuinely satisfying. This is the look. This is what you tore from the magazine and carried in your purse. Rising off your head, section by smooth section, is the exact silhouette worn by the glamorous women you admire, and for once, it is yours. She gives the shape a final assessment, circling you slowly, tucking one last strand, pressing gently to test its firmness. The monument stands. It is smooth. It is tall. It is beautifully proportioned. There is only one problem, and it is a significant one. At this exact moment, all of that height and shape is being held up by nothing but teasing and hope. One good breeze would flatten it, which is precisely why the next step exists, and why you should hold your breath. Now we lock it all in place, and this is where the air quality takes a dramatic turn. The beautician produces a can of hairspray, holds it uncomfortably close to your head, and unleashes a fog so thick and so vast that it briefly blocks out the light. You hold your breath. Everyone within a 6-foot radius holds their breath. The cloud settles slowly, coating your masterpiece in a shell so rigid you could knock on it. This lacquer does not move. It does not bend. It laughs at wind. It is also wildly flammable, which is a fun little detail to remember every time you lean toward a birthday cake for the next 7 days. Let's talk about the can, because this is no gentle modern misting product. This is industrial strength lacquer, formulated in an era that believed firmly in results over caution. When she presses the nozzle, it does not sigh out a light veil. It erupts, sending forth a dense, wet cloud of sticky droplets that saturates the air around your head and keeps going. The sound alone is committed, a long, sustained hiss as she circles you, coating every surface of the dew from every angle. You learn quickly to stop breathing during this phase. There is no polite way around it. The moment the spraying begins, you clamp your mouth shut, hold your breath, and possibly close your eyes, because the fog does not confine itself to your hair. It fills the immediate airspace, drifts into your face, settles on your skin and your eyelashes and the back of your throat if you're foolish enough to inhale. Everyone in the vicinity performs the same instinctive breath hold, a small synchronized moment of communal suffering. The purpose, though, is undeniable. As the lacquer dries, your soft, teased, sculpted hairstyle transforms into something structurally sound. The individual strands fuse together into a single unified shell, smooth and hard and glossy. You can, if you dare, tap a fingernail against the surface and hear a faint knock, the sound of a hairstyle that has been converted from hair into architecture. It will not budge, it will not frizz. It has been sealed against the elements like a boat being weatherproofed for a long voyage. This is what makes the weekly appointment possible in the first place. Without this rigid lacquer shell, your set would collapse within an hour. With it, the do can survive a full week of living, sleeping, cooking, and weather, holding its shape through nearly everything. The spray is the reason the whole system works. It is the difference between a hairstyle and a monument, and no amount of it is considered too much. There is a catch, naturally, and it is worth taking seriously. This lacquer is enthusiastically flammable. A head sealed in old hairspray is, technically speaking, a mild fire hazard, which becomes a genuinely relevant fact whenever you lean over a stove, light a cigarette, or bend down to blow out the candles on a cake. Women of this era develop a quiet instinct for keeping their heads away from open flame. A caution they may not even consciously notice, but which serves them well throughout the week. The cloud finally settles. The air clears, more or less. You cautiously resume breathing, testing whether it is safe, and you regard your reflection with new confidence. Because now the do is not merely built, it is permanent. It could survive a light rain, a strong wind, possibly a minor collision. You are sealed and ready. Unless, of course, you did not come for a simple set at all, in which case a far more chemical trial awaits you. Let's talk about the perm, because some of you did not come for a simple set. You came for curls that last, and you're about to pay for them in tears. The permanent wave process involves winding your hair onto tiny rods and then dousing the whole arrangement in a solution so powerful it chemically rearranges the structure of each strand. It stings, it reeks, it occasionally burns the scalp of anyone unlucky enough to have sensitive skin. You sit there, eyes streaming, trapped in a fog of ammonia, telling yourself that beauty is worth it while your entire nervous system politely disagrees. Understand the appeal first, because it explains why anyone volunteers for this. A set lasts a week and then falls. A perm lasts months. The permanent wave chemically alters the actual structure of your hair so that it holds curl on its own, without rollers, without a weekly rebuild. For a busy woman, that is a tempting promise. Invest in one long, punishing afternoon and reap months of easier mornings. The math is appealing right up until the solution touches your scalp. The process begins with winding, and it is finer and tighter than an ordinary set. Your hair is wound onto small perm rods in tidy sections, each one snug against the head, until you are covered in dozens of little cylinders far smaller than the rollers you know. This alone takes patience and time, your scalp drawn taut all over again. But the rods are only the delivery system. The real event is the chemistry, and the chemistry is not gentle. Now comes the solution. She applies it liberally over every wound rod, saturating your hair with a liquid built around ammonia and thioglycolate, the compounds that will break down and reform the internal bonds of each strand into a new curled shape. The instant it goes on, the smell detonates. That sharp, sour, rotten egg reek fills the air in your sinuses and your very soul. Your eyes begin to water immediately and they do not stop. You blink through a chemical fog that seems to have a physical presence. Then you wait, and this is where the true test of endurance sets in. The solution needs time to work, and during that time it sits against your scalp, and if your skin is at all sensitive, it lets you know. A tingling starts. The tingling may sharpen into a sting or a burn, a hot prickling wherever the solution meets skin. You're told this is normal. You're told to say something if it becomes too much. You sit there, eyes streaming, weighing your desire for curls against the growing sensation that your head is quietly protesting. After the processing comes the neutralizer, a second solution that stops the chemical reaction and locks the new curl into place. More liquid, more smell, more waiting. The whole affair stretches across a good chunk of the afternoon, far longer than a simple set, each stage adding its own layer of fumes and discomfort. By the end, your eyes are red, your nose is surrendered, and your patience has been tested to its outer limits. But then the rods come out, and there they are, tight, springy, chemically permanent curls that will hold for months to come. You dab your streaming eyes, sniff the air you can no longer smell, and admire your handiwork, or rather your suffering now rendered into lasting curl. It was worth it, you decide, mostly because you have to decide that after all of this. And if curl was your goal today, colour may well be tomorrow, because this is the decade that believes fervently in becoming blonde. It's time to talk colour, because this is the decade of bottle blondes and daring transformations. Maybe you want to cover a little grey. Maybe you saw a movie star and decided that today you become platinum. Either way, the beautician mixes up a batch of peroxide and dye that could probably clean an oven and paints it onto your head with a small brush and enormous confidence. The tingling starts almost immediately. You're warned not to scratch. You wait, and you hope, and you pray, because there is a very fine line between glamorous golden goddess and startled traffic cone, and only time will tell which one walks out today. Blonde is the aspiration of the age, and the reason is written across every movie screen and magazine cover. The most glamorous women of the era are pale gold, platinum, luminous, and every ordinary woman with mousy brown hair looks at them and quietly wonders. To go blonde is to reach for a little of that glamour, to transform not just your colour, but, you hope, your entire aura. It is bold, it is modern. It is also, chemically speaking, a small act of violence against your own hair. The mixing is a ritual in itself. The beautician combines peroxide and dye in a bowl, stirring with a brush until it reaches the right consistency, the fumes rising sharp and acrid to join the other scents of the room. Peroxide is the workhorse here, the agent that strips the existing colour out of your hair to make room for the new. It is strong stuff, the kind of chemical that means business, and she handles it with the practiced confidence of someone who has turned a great many heads gold and only occasionally gone wrong. Application demands precision, especially if you are only touching up your roots to hide the grey. She parts your hair into fine sections and paints the mixture on with the small brush, working close to the scalp, careful not to overlap onto previously coloured hair. Full transformations are a bigger undertaking, the whole head coated and left to lift. Either way, once it is on, the waiting begins, and the waiting is where the chemistry does its work and your nerves do theirs. The sensation arrives promptly. A tingling spreads across your scalp, mild at first, then more insistent, a chemical warmth that toes the line between active and alarming. You're firmly instructed not to scratch, because scratching an itch on a peroxide-covered scalp is asking for trouble, and so you sit on your hands, quite literally, resisting the growing urge while the mixture lifts your natural colour away shade by shade beneath its opaque coating. Here is the gamble that makes colour the highest stakes service in the salon. You cannot fully see what is happening. Under all that mixture, your hair is changing, but into what exactly? The line between a gorgeous luminous blonde and a brassy, coppery, faintly orange catastrophe is thin and unforgiving. Leave it too short and you get muddy. Leave it too long or misjudge the formula, and you emerge with a colour found nowhere in nature, a shade best described as alarmed. The beautician's experience is your only real insurance. When the time is up, she rinses it out, and the truth is revealed under the unforgiving salon lights. Sometimes it is glorious, a soft golden triumph that makes you gasp with delight. Sometimes it is a lesson, and a costly one, in why you should perhaps have trusted a professional a little more and a magazine photo a little less. Speaking of magazine photos, let's address the real source of every impossible request that walks through that door. Now, where do all these gravity-defying styles come from? Let's talk inspiration. You did not invent the bouffant in your own imagination. You saw it on someone far more famous. Perhaps the elegant First Lady, whose polished, rounded hair launched 1,000 imitations across every salon in the country. Perhaps a glamorous film actress with impossible volume and a knowing smile. You tore the photo from a magazine, folded it into your purse, and presented it to your beautician like a sacred relic. "Make me look like this," you silently plead, conveniently ignoring the fact that the woman in the photo had a team of professionals and you have one overworked stylist named Dolores. The glamour of the age flows downward, from the famous to the ordinary, and the salon is where it lands. A first lady with a perfectly rounded, dignified do-steps in front of the cameras, and within weeks, women in every town in the country are asking for that exact shape. A film star appears with a towering, luminous style, and the requests multiply. These women set the standard, and everyone else spends the decade trying, with varying success, to climb up to it. The magazine is your instrument of aspiration. You pore over the glossy pages studying the styles, and when one catches your heart, you tear it out, fold it carefully, and tuck it into your purse for safekeeping. That torn page becomes a talisman, carried to your appointment and produced with a hopeful flourish. Here you say, this one. The photo shows a woman of impossible polish, every strand in flawless place, and you would very much like to be her, please, by roughly noon. Your beautician takes the photo, and here is where her diplomacy earns its keep. She studies the image, then studies you, and quietly performs a calculation you are not privy to. She knows things the photo does not tell you. She knows that the woman in the picture has a different texture of hair than yours, a different shape of face, and crucially an entire team of professionals who spent hours achieving that single frozen moment of perfection. She knows the photo is a fantasy. Her job is to get you as close to it as reality allows. If the gap is small, she says nothing, and simply sets to work approximating the style. If the gap is a canyon, she must break the news gently, steering you towards something that will actually suit you without crushing your dream entirely. This is a delicate art. Tell a woman flatly that she cannot have the hairstyle she's been fantasizing about all week, and you have a problem. Guide her lovingly toward a version that flatters her real face and real hair, and she walks out happy, none the wiser that she's been quietly managed. The truth she rarely says aloud is that the women in those photos do not really look like that either, not in daily life. The image is a construction, lit and styled and captured at its single best second, then printed and idealized. Chasing it is a bit like chasing a mirage, always shimmering just ahead, never quite reachable. But the chase itself is part of the pleasure, the aspiration, a small engine of hope that keeps you coming back week after week. And so, you hand over your torn photo, place your faith in Dolores, and trust her to translate a movie star's fantasy into something your own head can actually carry to church on Sunday. She glances at the picture one more time, sets it on the counter, and reaches for her tools, ready to work her modest miracle amid the smoke, the coffee, and the general haze that fuels this entire establishment. Let's set the atmosphere properly, because the 1960s salon runs on two fuels, caffeine and tobacco. There is a pot of coffee somewhere, always slightly burnt, offered in little cups to keep you occupied during the endless waiting. And cigarettes. Oh, the cigarettes. Nearly everyone is smoking. The clients are smoking. The beauticians are smoking, sometimes while they work, ash dangling perilously close to your freshly set curls. Ashtrays sit on every counter, overflowing gently. Combine the smoke with the hairspray and the perm fumes, and you've created an indoor environment that no modern building inspector would allow to legally exist. Start with the coffee, that humble anchor of the waiting room. Somewhere on a back counter sits a percolator that has been on since morning, producing coffee that started acceptable and has since evolved into something darker and more bitter with each passing hour. It is offered freely, poured into small cups, a little gesture of hospitality to keep restless clients occupied. You accept it gratefully and drink it not because it is good, but because holding a warm cup gives your hand something to do during the long stretches of waiting. Then there are the cigarettes, and they are everywhere, woven so completely into the fabric of the day that their absence would be more shocking than their presence. This is an era that smokes without a second thought, indoors, everywhere, all the time. The women waiting light up to pass the time. The women under the dryers manage somehow to smoke even there. And the beauticians smoke while they work, a lit cigarette resting in an ashtray at their station, or alarmingly dangling from the lips as they lean in over your head. That last part deserves a moment of appreciation, because there is real skill in it, if not real wisdom. Picture your beautician, comb in one hand, working the delicate final touches of your set, a cigarette clamped in the corner of her mouth with a growing finger of ash at its tip. She tilts her head to keep the smoke out of her eyes, never pausing her work, the ash hanging on by some miracle of physics directly above your freshly built and highly flammable bouffant. You watch it in the mirror. You say nothing. You simply hope. The ashtrays tell the story of the day. They sit on every counter, at every station, in the waiting area, filling steadily as the hours pass until they overflow with a small grey landscape of spent cigarettes. Someone empties them periodically, and they immediately begin filling again. The haze of smoke hangs in the warm air, mingling with everything else, adding its own grey thread to the general chemical soup you've been breathing since you arrived. Now combine it all, and marvel at the sheer atmospheric achievement. You have hairspray lacquering the air, perm solution reeking from the back, peroxide fumes rising from the colour station, cigarette smoke drifting through everything, and burnt coffee anchoring the whole bouquet. It is a warm, humid, poorly ventilated room saturated with a genuinely remarkable combination of chemicals and smoke, and everyone inside it is simply breathing away, as though this were entirely ordinary, because to them it is. No modern building inspector would permit this room to exist for a single afternoon. But this is another era, one that does not yet think much about ventilation or fumes or the long-term wisdom of any of it. The atmosphere is simply part of the experience, as much a fixture as the pink walls and the dryer domes. You sip your bitter coffee, breathe your chemical air and settle in, because while your hair bakes, your hands are about to get some attention of their own. While your hair bakes and sets, your hands are not off the hook either. It's time for the manicure. A woman pulls up a small stool, takes your hand in hers and gets to work with an emery board, a cuticle pusher, and a look of intense concentration. Your nails are filed, shaped, and buffed, then painted in a bold red or a soft pastel, whatever suits the season. You're ordered to hold perfectly still while they dry, which is genuinely harder than it sounds, because now you cannot scratch your nose, fix your collar, or do anything except sit there, admiring your own glossy fingertips and hoping no one asks you to shake hands. The beauty of the manicure is its timing. All those long minutes under the dryer, all the idle waiting between stages, would otherwise be dead time. The salon, ever efficient, fills it by working on the other end of you. The manicurist pulls her little stool up beside your chair, sets out her tools on a small tray, and takes your hand into hers with the businesslike tenderness of someone who holds strangers' hands all day long. 2 services proceed at once, your head baking above, your hands being tended below. The work begins with shaping. She takes an emery board and files each nail into a graceful curve, the fashionable oval or a soft rounded point, working with quick sure strokes and pausing to check the symmetry. The sound is a light rhythmic rasp, back and forth, oddly soothing. She holds each finger with care, turning your hand this way and that, examining her progress with the focused frown of a craftswoman who takes her small canvas seriously. Then comes the cuticle work, which is where the manicure reveals its less relaxing side. She soaks your fingertips briefly, then goes after the cuticles with a little pointed pusher and sometimes a tiny nipper, tidying the edges of each nail. This involves a certain amount of poking and pushing at tender skin, and while it is not painful exactly, it keeps you alert. You hold still and trust her not to draw blood, and mostly she does not, and the result is a clean, neat nail bed ready for polish. The painting is the payoff. She selects the colour, a confident lacquer red for glamour, or a soft pastel for something sweeter, and applies it in smooth practice strokes, base of the nail to tip, one clean line at a time. 2 coats usually, sometimes a top coat for shine, each layer needing a moment to set. Slowly, your ordinary working hands are transformed into something polished and pretty. 10 glossy little jewels at the ends of your fingers. And then the true trial begins, the one no amount of skill on her part can spare you. The drying. Wet polish is fragile and slow, and you're commanded to hold perfectly still and not touch anything, which sounds simple and is in fact nearly impossible. Suddenly your nose itches with tremendous urgency. Your collar needs adjusting. A strand of hair falls across your face. You can do nothing about any of it. You sit frozen, hands splayed and useless, willing the polish to dry before your restraint gives out. You wave your hands gently in the air, blow on them, and stare at your gleaming fingertips with a mixture of pride and helplessness. You're beautiful and immobilized. Heaven forbid anyone should choose this moment to offer a friendly handshake. But the hands are only one front in the larger campaign, because while they dry, attention turns to the face, and specifically to a small and surprisingly painful frontier just above your eyes. Let's move to the face, starting with a small but painful frontier, the eyebrows. This is the era of the thin, arched, meticulously shaped brow, and achieving it involves tweezers and a surprising amount of stoicism. Hair by hair they are plucked into a delicate curve, each little tug bringing a fresh watering of the eyes. There is no numbing, no gentle technique, just a steady hand and your own gritted teeth. You emerge with brows so refined they look permanently sceptical. And if you over-plucked at home last month, well, you learn a hard lesson about how slowly eyebrows forgive. The ideal of the moment is precise and demanding. The fashionable brow is thin, high, and cleanly arched, a delicate line rather than a natural fullness, sweeping upward and then tapering to a fine point. Achieving that shape means removing a great deal of what nature provided, and removing eyebrow hair, as anyone who has done it knows, is a small act of self-inflicted suffering repeated many, many times in a row. The tool is the humble tweezer, and in a skilled hand it is both precise and merciless. The technician leans in close, studies the current state of your brows, and begins to pluck, gripping each individual hair and pulling it out by the root with a quick, decisive tug. There is no cream to numb the skin, no clever trick to dull the sting. There is only the tweezer, her steady hand, and your willingness to sit still and take it, hair by hair by hair. Each pluck produces the same small event, a sharp pinch, an involuntary flinch, and a fresh sting that brings water welling to that eye. The area just above the eyes is tender, and it does not become less tender as the process continues. If anything, the skin grows more sensitive with each removal, so that by the end you are blinking back genuine tears, one eye and then the other, as she works methodically toward the desired arch. Stoicism is required, and it is expected. You do not cry out. You do not jerk away. You sit there like a woman being quietly tested by fate, gripping the arms of the chair perhaps, breathing through it, reminding yourself that beauty demands sacrifice, and this particular sacrifice is measured in individual hairs. The technician, for her part, is entirely unmoved by your suffering, which is precisely what you want, because a steady, indifferent hand produces a cleaner arch than a sympathetic, hesitant one. The result, when she finally sets down the tweezers, is a pair of brows refined into that fashionable thin arch, elegant and precise. There is a slightly startled quality to the very thin brow, a permanent look of faint surprise or gentle skepticism, as though you are perpetually and politely doubting whatever you're being told. This is entirely on trend, and you wear it well, your newly delicate arches framing your eyes with modern sophistication. But a warning lives inside this segment, and every woman of the era learns it eventually, usually the hard way. Eyebrows are slow to forgive. Pluck too enthusiastically at home one month, chasing an even thinner line, and you may find that the hair is in no hurry to return, leaving you with sparse gaps to pencil in for a very long time. Restraint is wisdom here. But restraint is not the theme of the era's makeup, as you're about to discover, because subtlety is about to leave the building entirely. Now for the finishing touches, and the 1960s do not do subtle. It's time for the makeup. First, a pale foundation, then the star of the show, the cat eye, a bold sweep of black liquid liner that flicks upward at the corner like a tiny declaration of war. Next come the false eyelashes, thick as caterpillars, glued on with a steady hand and a lot of blinking. Finish with a frosted, almost ghostly pale lipstick, because dramatic eyes deserve a quiet mouth. You look in the mirror, and a glamorous, wide-eyed stranger stares back, ready to face the world or at least the church social. The look begins with the canvas, and the canvas is deliberately pale. A light foundation goes on first, evening the skin into a smooth, matte, almost porcelain base, cooling out any natural colour. This paleness is intentional and strategic, because the entire drama of the 60s face is concentrated around the eyes, and a pale base makes the eyes shout that much louder. You're building a background specifically so that the main event can steal every ounce of attention, and the main event is the eyes, treated with a seriousness bordering on the theatrical. The centerpiece is the cat eye, achieved with black liquid liner drawn in a bold, confident line along the upper lash, thickening toward the outer corner and then flicking sharply upward and outward into a crisp little point. Drawing it well takes a steady hand and no small amount of nerve. One clean stroke, because liquid liner is unforgiving and a shaky line means starting over. Done right, it gives the eye a lifted, feline, wide-awake glamour. Then, because one dramatic element is never enough, come the false eyelashes. These are not the delicate wisps of a later era. These are thick, full, unmistakable fringes, dark and heavy, applied along the lash line with a thin bead of glue and a great deal of careful blinking as you wait for it to grab hold. Some women even add lashes to the lower lash line as well, doubling down on the wide-eyed doll-like effect. The result is eyes that seem enormous, framed in a bold sweep of black, impossible to ignore. With the eyes carrying all that drama, balance demands that the mouth retreat, and retreat it does, all the way to near invisibility. The fashionable lip is pale, frosted, almost ghostly, a soft nude or a chalky pastel that plays down the mouth entirely. It is a striking inversion of the bold red lips of earlier decades. Here the lips whisper so that the eyes can scream, a pale, quiet mouth beneath those enormous dark eyes, the whole composition tilted deliberately upward toward the gaze. Step back and take in the full effect, and it is a genuine transformation. The pale skin, the pale lips, the sharp black cat eye, the thick fringe of false lashes, all of it combines into a face that is dramatic, modern, and unmistakably of its moment. It is not a natural look and does not pretend to be. It is a constructed, confident, high-contrast glamour, a face assembled with the same care and ambition that built the hairstyle towering above it. You look in the mirror and meet the eyes of a glamorous, wide-eyed stranger, polished and painted and ready to be seen. It is thrilling and just slightly disorienting to recognize yourself inside all that drama. But the transformation does not actually stop at your painted face, because beneath the lovely dress, your entire body has been quietly conscripted into the pursuit of the perfect silhouette, and it is not comfortable about it. Let's step back and talk about the bigger picture, because the beauty of this era does not stop at the neck. Beneath that lovely dress, you're almost certainly wearing a girdle, a garment engineered to compress, smooth, and slightly suffocate you into the fashionable silhouette. It is tight, it is hot, it leaves marks. Sitting down is a strategic decision, and bending over is out of the question. The salon may perfect your hair and your face, but the full 1960s look demands that your entire body quietly agree to be uncomfortable all day long. Suffering, it turns out, is simply part of the outfit. Consider what the fashionable silhouette actually requires. The dresses and skirts of the era are cut to sit smoothly over a firm, controlled shape. No lumps, no softness, nothing straying from the intended line. The human body, being a soft and irregular thing, does not naturally provide this, and so it must be persuaded, and the instrument of persuasion is the girdle, a heavy foundation garment engineered to grip your midsection and hips and compress them into obedient, streamlined smoothness. Putting one on is a small workout in itself. The girdle is made of stiff elasticized fabric, sometimes reinforced with panels or boning, and it does not go on easily. You wriggle, you tug, you work it up over your hips inch by determined inch until it settles into place and begins its day-long job of holding you firmly in check. Once it is on, you feel it everywhere, a constant encompassing pressure around your middle that reminds you with every breath that you're wearing it. And the discomfort is not a minor thing you forget about. The girdle is tight by design and hot by consequence, trapping heat against your body under all your layers. It restricts how you move and how deeply you breathe. Long hours in one leave red marks and creases pressed into your skin, a temporary tattoo of the day's confinement that you discover with relief when you finally peel it off at night. This is not a garment you wear so much as one you endure. it reshapes your very behaviour. Sitting down becomes a calculated manoeuvre, lowering yourself carefully into a chair that the girdle would prefer you did not sit in at all. Bending over is essentially off the table, a physical impossibility that turns picking something up off the floor into a small logistical problem. You learn to move within the limits the garment allows, upright and composed, which happens to produce exactly the poised, controlled posture the era admires. The discomfort, in a sense, enforces the elegance. And this is the quiet truth beneath the whole glamorous enterprise, the thing worth pausing on. The perfect hair, the painted face, the smooth silhouette, none of it is comfortable. The dryer bakes you, the perm stings you, the tweezers sting you, the hairspray chokes you, and the girdle compresses you, all day, every day. Beauty in this era is not a matter of enhancing what is easy and natural. It is a sustained campaign of managed discomfort, cheerfully undertaken in pursuit of an ideal that demands your body agree to suffer for it. You accept it, as all the women around you accept it, because this is simply the price and everyone is paying it together. There is even a strange solidarity in the shared endurance. You smooth your dress over your firmly girdled figure, sit down with practiced care and carry on, magnificent and mildly uncomfortable. And speaking of things best not examined too closely, let's turn our attention to that curious blue jar sitting on the counter and the era's charmingly optimistic idea of hygiene. Let's pause and talk about hygiene, or the charming version of it that passed for hygiene back then. On nearly every counter sits a tall glass jar filled with a bright, almost radioactive blue liquid, and floating inside are combs and scissors. This is the disinfectant jar, and it is the salon's entire defence against the sharing of, let's say, unwelcome guests between customers. Whether that blue liquid actually cleans anything, or simply looks reassuringly medical, is a question best left unexamined. The comb that touched the last 3 heads is now touching yours. You choose, wisely, not to think about it too hard. The jar itself is oddly beautiful, in the way that questionable things sometimes are. It is a tall cylinder of glass, and the liquid inside glows a vivid, almost electric blue, the kind of colour that appears nowhere in nature and immediately signals science. Submerged in it stand the combs and shears and clips, handles up, soaking in their chemical bath between clients. The whole arrangement looks purposeful and clinical, and that appearance of purpose is doing a great deal of the reassuring work here. The idea behind it is sound enough. Tools pass from head to head all day long, and heads, it must be admitted, sometimes carry things you would rather not receive. The small, unwelcome guests that hop cheerfully from one scalp to the next given the chance. The blue liquid is meant to be the barrier, the disinfectant that resets each tool to clean before it touches the next customer. In principle, it is a genuine hygiene measure, a line of defence between you and the last several heads of the afternoon. In practice, the ritual is somewhat looser than the principle. The comb dips into the blue, comes out, and gets to work. But how long it actually soaked, and whether that was truly long enough to do anything meaningful, is a matter no one dwells on. The jar sits there looking medical and reassuring, and everyone treats its contents as thoroughly sanitized, and the gap between what the jar promises and what it delivers is simply not discussed. It is a matter of faith more than chemistry. You become aware, sitting in the chair, that the comb currently being drawn through your freshly set hair has almost certainly been drawn through several other heads today, with only a brief blue dip standing between them and you. This is a thought best acknowledged once and then firmly set aside. To dwell on it is to spiral, and spiralling helps no one. So you let the blue jar do its reassuring work on your imagination, if not entirely on the tools, and you look away. This is, in the end, a snapshot of the era's whole relationship with cleanliness and safety, which might best be described as optimistic. The intention is present. The gesture is made. The jar exists. The tools are dipped. The box is ticked. Whether the underlying reality fully matches the comforting appearance is a question the age is not especially interested in asking. Here or, as we've seen anywhere else in this smoky, chemical-soaked room. And so, the blue jar sits on the counter, glowing away, a small monument to good intentions and unexamined confidence. You trust it because trusting it is easier than the alternative, and because everyone around you trusts it too. The comb glides through your hair, freshly blue and probably fine. You relax, you let it go. Because if the casual hygiene does not trouble the era, the casual approach to electricity and open flames certainly should, and that is a danger far harder to look away from. It's time to appreciate the sheer electrical bravery of it all. The 1960s salon is packed with metal appliances that get blisteringly hot and were designed with only a passing interest in safety. There are curling irons heated on little burners, hot combs that could straighten hair or accidentally brand an ear, and dryers with enough wattage to power a small home. Cords snake across damp floors. Water and electricity coexist in a way that would make a modern engineer faint. And yet, day after day, the beauticians wield these glowing metal tools with total confidence, one steady hand away from a very memorable afternoon. Start with the heat itself, because there is a great deal of it in this room. Curling irons and hot combs get genuinely dangerously hot, heated on small burners or by their own coils until they glow with real menace. There is no gentle temperature dial, no automatic shut-off, no reassuring beep to tell you the thing is ready. There is only the tool, the heat, and the beautician's experience in judging when it is hot enough to work and not so hot that it scorches. That judgment is the only safety feature in play. The curling iron is a marvel of nerve. It's a heavy metal instrument that the beautician heats and then clamps directly around sections of your hair, mere inches from your scalp, your ears, and your neck. A moment's inattention, a slightly too long clamp, and you have a singed lock of hair, or worse, a small burn on tender skin. She wields it inches from your face with total calm, and you sit very, very still, trusting that her thousands of hours of practice will keep the glowing metal exactly where it belongs. The hot comb is, if anything, more alarming. Used to straighten hair, it is a metal comb heated until it can press curls flat, drawn slowly through the hair right against the head. The margin for error is slim, and the stakes are memorable, because a hot comb that strays too close to an ear finds the skin there thin and unforgiving. Every woman who has sat for this holds herself with a particular tense stillness, because she understands exactly what is passing so near her ear, and exactly how much it would announce itself if it landed. Then there is the wiring, which is where a modern engineer would need to sit down. The dryers draw enormous power, the irons and combs draw their share, and the cords for all of it snake across counters and along the floor, the same floor that is frequently damp from the shampoo sinks, and the general humidity of the room. Water and electricity, kept apart so carefully in any sensible setting, share the same space here with cheerful indifference, tangled together as though nothing could possibly come of it. And yet the astonishing thing is how smoothly it all functions, day after day. The beauticians handle these hot, high-powered, poorly insulated tools with the easy confidence of long habit, curling and pressing and drying without incident, guided by experience rather than by any built-in protection. The safety, such as it is, lives entirely in their hands and their attention. The machines themselves offer none. They simply glow and hum and get hot, and trust the human holding them to prevent catastrophe. It works, mostly, precisely because those humans are skilled and careful, one steady hand standing between an ordinary afternoon and a very memorable one. You sit through it trusting that hand completely, as women trust it every day, and you are almost always right to. And speaking of those skilled hands, it is worth asking where all that expertise came from, because your beautician was not born knowing how to wield a glowing iron beside your ear. Let's talk about the woman behind the comb, because she didn't just wake up one day knowing how to build a beehive. She earned it. She went to beauty school, where she practiced for endless hours on mannequin heads and extremely patient friends, learning the chemistry of dyes, the mechanics of a proper set, and the delicate art of listening to a client complain for 90 straight minutes. She passed a state licensing exam. She stands on her feet all day, hands raw from water and chemicals, smiling through it all. Behind every towering hairdo is a skilled, exhausted professional who has heard absolutely everything. The path begins at beauty school, a genuine course of training rather than a casual hobby picked up along the way. There she spends long hours learning her craft from the ground up, drilling the fundamentals over and over until they become second nature. She learns to section, to wind, to set, to shape, repeating each motion hundreds of times until her hands know it without her mind having to think. It is skilled work, and like all skilled work, it is built on a foundation of patient, unglamorous repetition. A great deal of that practice happens on mannequin heads, those patient plastic pupils who never flinch, never complain, and never tell her the colour came out wrong. On them she practices her rollers, her teasing, her cutting, her styling, building muscle memory on a subject that cannot be harmed. And then, when the mannequins are mastered, she moves on to the far riskier subjects, friends and family generous or foolish enough to offer their real heads to a student still learning. Their loyalty is tested, and sometimes their hair pays the price. But the craft is not only mechanical, and this surprises people. She must learn genuine chemistry, because the dyes and perm solutions she handles are powerful and particular, and misjudging them means brassy colour, or a burned scalp, or a set that will not hold. She learns which chemicals do what, how they interact, how long they take, and how to read a head of hair well enough to predict how it will respond. There is real science under the glamour, and she has to know it cold. Then there is the licensing, because this is a regulated profession, not a free-for-all. She must pass a state examination to earn the right to work, proving her knowledge and her skill to someone official before she is trusted with the public's heads. It is a real credential, earned through real study, and it marks the difference between a trained professional and an amateur with a curling iron. When she finally hangs that license on the wall, it represents genuine achievement, and the working life itself is hard on the body in ways the clients rarely see. She's on her feet all day, every day, standing through appointment after appointment with barely a break. Her hands are in water and harsh chemicals for hours on end, until the skin grows raw and dry and roughened. Her back aches from bending over sinks and chairs. She smells of the salon long after she goes home. It is physical, demanding labour, cheerfully disguised behind a warm smile and easy conversation. The last skill is the one no exam can measure, the patience to listen. She hears everything, hours of it daily, the worries and complaints and confessions of every woman in her chair, and she absorbs it with unfailing warmth. Behind every towering, gleaming hairdo stands this skilled and weary professional, an artist and a chemist, and a therapist rolled into one who's heard it all and keeps smiling. She has earned her place at that chair, and she has earned every dollar you're about to hand over, which brings us delicately to the matter of money. Now let's discuss money, because none of this glamour is free. The weekly wash and set costs a few dollars, which does not sound like much until you multiply it by 52 weeks, and add in the perms, the colour and the manicures. For many households, the beauty budget is a genuine line item, carefully managed and fiercely defended. And then there is the tip, that quiet social minefield, where too little marks you as cheap and too much marks you as showing off. You count out your coins, hand them over with a warm smile, and quietly hope your husband does not look too closely at this month's spending. Take that weekly wash and set on its own, and it seems modest enough, just a few dollars for an afternoon of transformation. But beauty here is not a single purchase, it is a subscription, and the true cost only reveals itself when you do the arithmetic across the whole year. Multiply those few dollars by 52 weeks, every single one, and the tidy little figure swells into something substantial, a steady outflow that never pauses because the do, as we have established, must always be maintained. And the wash and set is only the baseline. Layered on top come the bigger services at their bigger prices. The perm, with its rods and its chemistry and its long afternoon, costs considerably more, though it does at least last for months. The colour, the peroxide and dye and skilled application adds its own charge. The manicure adds a little more. Each visit becomes an opportunity to spend beyond the basic, and over a year those extras accumulate into a figure that would give any careful bookkeeper pause. For many households this is real money, and it is treated as such. The beauty budget becomes a genuine category in the family finances, an amount set aside and accounted for, defended against the competing claims of every other expense. It is not frivolous spending in the mind of the woman who manages it. It is a necessity, as essential to her standing in the community as a decent coat or a clean house, and she guards that budget accordingly, trimming elsewhere before she trims here. Then comes the tip, and the tip is where the arithmetic turns social and treacherous. It is not a fixed price, but a judgment, a small performance of exactly how you wish to be seen. Tip too little, and word travels, and you are quietly marked as cheap. An unforgivable little sin in a community that notices everything. Tip too lavishly, and you're showing off, putting on airs, which is nearly as bad. You must find the precise correct amount that signals appreciation without extravagance, and you must find it every single week. So you count out your coins with care, calculating the tip that lands exactly right, and hand the whole sum over with a warm and easy smile that betrays none of the mental arithmetic behind it. The transaction is friendly, even affectionate, but underneath it runs a current of real economic calculation, the steady, quiet management of a household expense that recurs without mercy. Beauty, it turns out, is not only measured in fumes and discomfort, it is measured in dollars, week after week after week. And somewhere at home, there is a husband who pays these bills, or at least sees them, and who has learned over the years to look at the beauty line of the budget with a certain diplomatic vagueness. Which is fitting, really, because he is not permitted into this world in the first place, and understanding almost nothing about it is very much part of the arrangement. Let's talk about the Great Divide, because the salon is firmly a woman's world, and the men of 1963 know better than to enter it. They have their own place, the barbershop, with its striped pole, its quick cuts, and its distinct lack of dryer domes. A husband might drop his wife off and then vanish for hours, wisely choosing to wait in the car at the diner, or anywhere that is not surrounded by perm fumes and detailed neighbourhood gossip. The two worlds rarely mix. He does not ask what happens in there, and honestly, for the sake of his own peace, he probably should not. The division is nearly absolute, one of the cleaner lines drawn through the era's daily life. The salon is female territory, top to bottom, from the pink walls to the gossip, to the shared understanding of everything that happens within it. A man crossing that threshold would feel the wrongness of it immediately, an intruder in a space that was never built with him in mind. And so men simply do not go, not out of any formal rule, but out of a deep, mutually understood sense that this is not their place and never will be. They have their own place instead. and it is the mirror image of the salon in almost every way. The barbershop announces itself with its striped pole turning slowly outside, and inside it offers exactly what the salon does not: speed, simplicity, and no chemistry whatsoever. A man walks in, sits down, receives a quick and businesslike cut, and walks out. The whole affair measured in minutes rather than hours. There are no dryer domes here, no rollers, no perm solution, no towering constructions requiring an afternoon to build. The atmosphere differs as much as the service. The barbershop has its own social character, its own particular talk, but it moves at a different pace and in a different register, brisk and plain-spoken where the salon is warm and winding. A man is in and out before a woman across town has even emerged from under her dryer. The two establishments serve the same basic human need for grooming, and yet they may as well exist in separate worlds, each with its own rhythms, rituals, and rules. The handoff between these worlds is a small comedy played out every week. A husband drives his wife to her appointment, drops her at the door, and then faces the vast and mysterious stretch of hours until she is ready. He does not come in. He would not dream of coming in. Instead, he vanishes, retreating to the car with a newspaper, or to the diner for coffee, or to run errands, anywhere at all that is not immersed in fumes and the detailed cataloguing of the neighbourhood's private business. And crucially, he does not ask questions. What happens inside the salon stays inside the salon, not because of any secrecy, but because he genuinely does not want to know, and everyone is more comfortable that way. The gossip, the confessions, the long unhurried talk, all of it belongs to that world and stays there. He knows only that his wife goes in looking one way and emerges hours later looking transformed, and he has learned that the wisest response is admiration and no follow-up inquiries. For the sake of his own peace, this is exactly right. There are things discussed under those dryers that a husband is far happier not knowing, and the tidy separation of the two worlds protects everyone's contentment. He returns at the appointed hour, admires the finished result, and asks nothing. And she, for her part, must now face the challenge of protecting that finished result through the long, dangerous hours of the night ahead. It's time to face the nightly challenge, because the do does not end when you leave the shop. It has to survive the night, and that is easier said than done. To protect the set, you sleep on a special pillow, or you wind your hair back onto rollers, or you simply try to lie perfectly still on your back like a very tense corpse. Rolling over is a betrayal. A single restless night can flatten one side into a tragic lopsided disaster. And so you sleep lightly, carefully, defending your hairstyle from the enemy known as gravity. Also, it lasts one more precious day. Remember the central logic that makes this necessary. You're not washing and resetting your hair each morning. The set you receive on your appointment day is meant to endure the entire week, which means every single night in between becomes a battle to keep it intact. Sleep, that ordinary act of rest, transforms into a nightly threat, because the natural tossing and pressing of a body against a pillow is precisely what a carefully built hairstyle cannot survive, and so you must sleep defensively. The gentlest defense is the special pillow, or simply a strategic arrangement of the ordinary one, designed to cradle your neck while sparing the hair itself from being crushed. You position yourself with care, trying to rest the weight of your head in a way that leaves the dew untouched, floating above the pillow rather than mashed into it. It is an awkward compromise, comfort sacrifice for preservation, and it sets the tone for the entire uneasy night to come. Some women take a more active approach and wind their hair back onto rollers before bed, essentially resetting the structure each night so that morning brings a chance to revive the curl. This trades one discomfort for another, because sleeping on a head full of hard rollers is its own particular ordeal, the little cylinders pressing into your scalp all night long. but it protects the investment, and for many that is worth a few hours of lumpy, interrupted rest. The most demanding method is simply to hold still, to lie flat on your back and refuse to move, keeping your head and its precious cargo perfectly aligned and untouched until morning. This asks a great deal of a sleeping person. You must resist the deep instinct to shift, to turn, to burrow into the pillow, remaining as motionless as a very tense corpse laid out for viewing. Any lapse, any unconscious roll onto your side, and the damage is done, because the punishment for failure is swift and visible. Roll onto one side and stay there, and the weight of your head presses that side flat, so that you wake to a hairstyle ruined in a single dramatic lopsided disaster, tall and proud on one side, crushed and defeated on the other. There is no quick fix for this at home. A flattened do means either a bad hair day endured in public or worse, a return trip to the salon, an admission of nighttime defeat. And so you sleep lightly, half-conscious, some part of your mind standing guard over your own head throughout the night, defending the masterpiece against the patient, relentless enemy called gravity. It is exhausting in its own quiet way, this vigilance, but it buys you another day of the do, another day of looking maintained and put together without a fresh appointment. Small wonder, then, that women grew clever about it and developed some genuinely inventive tricks to armour the hairstyle against the night, one of which involved a most unlikely material. Let's talk about one of the era's most creative survival tricks, and yes, it involves the bathroom. To keep the hairstyle intact overnight, many women wrapped their entire head in toilet paper or a silk scarf if they were feeling elegant, binding the whole structure into a neat little protective cocoon. Picture it, a fully lacquered bouffant, swaddled in tissue like a delicate holiday ornament, perched on a pillow in the dark. It is absurd. It is genius. And come morning, you unwrap yourself like a present, pat everything gently back into place, and buy your hairstyle another day of survival without a single trip back to the salon. The problem, as we have seen, is that the night wants to destroy your hair, and the solution some clever woman arrived at is to armour it. And the armour of choice, humble and ingenious, is toilet paper. You take a roll and wind it around your entire head, wrapping the tissue over and around the whole lacquered structure until the hairstyle is encased in a soft protective layer, a light shell standing between your do and the crushing pillow. It cost almost nothing. It is in every bathroom already, and it works. For the woman with slightly grander sensibilities, there is the silk scarf, which does the same job with considerably more dignity. Wound and tied around the head, the smooth scarf holds the hairstyle in place and shields it from friction, all without the faintly comic quality of the tissue method. It is the more elegant version of the same idea, and which one a woman chose said something about her, though both ended with the same goal, a hairstyle bound up and defended against the dark hours ahead. Picture the full scene, because it is genuinely something to behold. A grown woman, fresh from the salon with a tall and beautiful bouffant, now sits up in bed with her entire head swaddled in white tissue, wrapped like a delicate ornament being packed away for the season, or perhaps like a gift awaiting its recipient. She settles carefully onto the pillow, this tissue-crowned figure, and composes herself for sleep. It is one of the small, private absurdities of the era, performed nightly and mentioned to almost no one. And yet, absurd as it looks, it is nothing short of clever. The wrapping genuinely protects the set, holding the shape and reducing the damage that a night of movement would otherwise inflict. It is a homemade, resourceful, thoroughly practical solution to a real problem, invented and shared among women who understood exactly what they were up against. There is real ingenuity in it. The same spirit of make-do resourcefulness that runs through so much of ordinary life in this era applied here to the serious business of hair preservation. The morning brings the reward, and it has its own small ceremony. You wake, reach up, and carefully unwind the tissue or untie the scarf, unwrapping your own head like a present being opened, revealing the hairstyle beneath. If the wrapping did its job, the do has survived, needing only a few gentle pats to coax any flattened spots back into place. A little smoothing here, a light touch there, and the bouffant stands restored, ready to face another day. And that is the whole point of the exercise, the payoff for the nightly absurdity. Another full day of the hairstyle without a return trip to the salon. The toilet paper crown buys you time, stretches the pressure set across the long week, and keeps you looking maintained between appointments. It is silly, and it is brilliant in equal measure, a perfect little emblem of the effort this era's beauty quietly demanded. But some occasions call for far more than a nightly preserved set, and for those the salon has one final spectacular trick up its sleeve. Now let's raise the stakes, because sometimes a simple set is not enough. There is a wedding, a graduation, a fancy dinner, and that means an updo, the crown jewel of 1960s hairdressing. This is where your beautician truly shows off, twisting and pinning and spraying your hair into an elaborate sculpture studded with what feels like 200 bobby pins. It is stunning. It is architectural. It is also so heavily secured that removing it later will require patience, good lighting, and possibly a small search party for all the missing pins. But for one glorious evening, you are an absolute masterpiece. Some occasions rise above the ordinary week and they demand a hairstyle to match. A wedding, where you must look your finest among all the watching eyes. A graduation, a milestone worth marking. A truly fancy dinner, an evening of real importance. For these, the everyday bouffant simply will not do. You need something grander, something that announces the significance of the moment, and so you turn to the updo, the most elaborate and impressive creation in the whole repertoire. This is your beautician's moment to show the full range of her artistry, and she rises to it. An updo is not merely styled, it is constructed, built upward and inward as she gathers your hair and begins to twist, fold, and coil it into shape. She works with real concentration, sculpting the strands into loops and rolls and elegant sweeps, each section placed with intention, the whole thing rising into a structure far more complex than anything a simple weekly set requires. You watch it take form in the mirror with mounting amazement. Holding all of that architecture in place demands hardware, and a great deal of it. She reaches for the bobby pins and uses them with abandon, sliding pin after pin into the structure to anchor every twist and coil, until your hair contains what feels like 200 of the little metal fasteners. Each one disappears into the style, invisible from the outside, silently doing its part to hold the sculpture aloft. Layer this with generous clouds of hairspray, and the creation becomes genuinely permanent, locked and immovable. The result is worth every pin. Standing atop your head is a true sculpture, architectural in its ambition, elegant and elaborate and unmistakably special. It elevates you, literally and otherwise, transforming you into the polished, formal version of yourself that such an occasion deserves. You turn your head slowly, admiring it from every angle, and feel every bit the masterpiece you have become. For this one glorious evening, you are as glamorous as any woman in any magazine, and you know it. There is, of course, a reckoning waiting at the end of the night, and it is considerable. All those pins that went in so smoothly must eventually come out, and finding every last one is a genuine expedition. Later, tired and ready for bed, you stand before the mirror hunting for pins buried deep in the sprayed structure, working them free one by one, certain you've found them all and then discovering 3 more. It requires patience, good light, and something close to a small search party to fully dismantle the evening's creation. But that is a problem for the end of the night, and not one that dims the pleasure of the occasion itself. For those glorious hours you carry your architectural masterpiece proudly, the crowning achievement of the era's hairdressing art, and you feel magnificent. The pins can wait, the reckoning can wait. Tonight you are a sculpture, and that is exactly as it should be. And whether it is an elaborate updo or a simple weekly set, every visit builds toward the same electric moment, the one you've been waiting for since you first sat down. It's finally time. After the shampoo, the rollers, the dryer, the teasing, and the lacquer, the moment arrives. Your beautician spins the chair, holds up a hand mirror behind your head, and reveals the finished creation from every angle. And there it is, tall and smooth and gleaming, exactly like the photo you tore from the magazine, more or less. You smile, she smiles. You tilt your head very carefully to admire the volume. For this brief, shining moment, all the fumes and the neck pain and the money feel completely worth it. You walk out of that salon feeling like a movie star, holding your head like it might fall off. Everything you have endured has been building toward this single instant. The neck-bending shampoo, the tight rollers, the roaring dryer, the violent teasing, the choking clouds of spray, all of it was in service of this one payoff. And now the moment has come. The work is finished, the creation complete, and it is time at last to see what all that suffering has produced. You sit up a little straighter, breath held, as your beautician prepares to unveil her handiwork. The reveal has its own small ritual, performed the same way every time. She spins your chair to face the large mirror, then raises a hand mirror behind your head and angles it so you can see the back, turning it this way and that to show you the creation from every side. This is the tradition, the formal presentation, the moment where artist shows client the completed work and awaits the verdict. You crane to catch each angle, taking in the full 3-dimensional reality of what now sits atop your head. And there it is, tall, smooth, and gleaming. The hairstyle stands in all its lacquered glory, a rounded monument of volume catching the salon light along its sealed surface. You compare it, instinctively, to the photo you carried in, the movie star image you presented with such hope hours ago. It matches, more or less. Close enough that the gap hardly matters, close enough that you can see the aspiration realized in your own reflection, and that is a genuinely thrilling thing to behold. The smiles come easily now, shared between the two of you. You smile at your reflection, delighted, and she smiles too, pleased with her work and with your pleasure in it. There is real satisfaction in this exchange, a small mutual triumph. She has taken raw material and hours of labour and produced something beautiful, and you are the happy proof of it, sitting there admiring yourself. You tilt your head, ever so carefully, to watch the volume shift in the light, mindful even now not to disturb the structure. And in this brief, shining moment, the entire ordeal justifies itself completely. The chemical fumes that stung your eyes, the porcelain sink that punished your neck, the heat that baked your scalp, the money counted out so carefully, all of it recedes and is forgiven, redeemed by the gleaming result before you. This is what you came for. This is what it was all in service of. The suffering was the price, and gazing at the finished do, you decide without hesitation that the price was fair. You rise from the chair transformed, and you carry yourself out of the salon like a movie star making an entrance, holding your head with the careful, slightly stiff dignity of a woman who knows exactly how much work is balanced atop her neck and does not intend to let a single strand fall. For today, you are glamour itself, sealed and gleaming and magnificent. Yet even in this shining moment, unseen and unhurried, the forces that will one day sweep all of this away are already beginning to gather. Let's close by looking ahead, because nothing lasts forever, not even the mighty bouffant. As the decade rolls on, a quiet revolution begins. A new kind of stylist starts cutting sharp, geometric shapes that need no teasing and almost no spray. Younger women start craving hair that moves, that swings, that can be washed at home and simply left to be itself. The idea of a rigid, week-long lacquered helmet starts to feel less like glamour and more like a cage. Slowly, the weekly set loosens its grip. The dryer domes fall silent, and the towering hairstyles of 1963 drift gently into memory. Change rarely announces itself loudly, and this change began as a whisper. Even at the height of the bouffant's reign, when every salon hummed with dryers and reeked of lacquer, the seeds of its ending were already present. Fashion is restless by nature, always turning, and what feels timeless and universal in one moment can begin to feel dated and heavy in the next. The towering dew stood at its peak precisely as the ground beneath it started, imperceptibly to shift. The revolution came, fittingly, from a new kind of stylist with a new idea about what hair should be. Instead of building volume through teasing and spray, these stylists cut. They created sharp, clean, geometric shapes where the cut itself did the work, where the beauty lived in the precision of the lines rather than in the height of the structure. Such a style needed no violent backcombing, no rigid shell of lacquer, no towering architecture. It simply needed a brilliant cut and hair left free to fall as it would. And younger women, it turned out, wanted exactly this. They looked at the lacquered helmets of their mothers and felt not admiration but restlessness. They craved hair that moved, that swung when they turned their heads, that felt alive rather than sculpted into permanence. They wanted freedom from the weekly appointment, freedom to wash their own hair at home and let it simply be itself, freedom from the whole elaborate, time-consuming, fume-filled ritual that had governed their mothers' weeks. Seen through these new eyes, the old ways began to look less like glamour and more like confinement. The rigid do that could not survive a night unprotected, that forbade sudden movements and required a return to the shop every 7 days, started to feel like a cage, beautiful perhaps, but restrictive, demanding constant maintenance and constant care. What had once signalled that a woman had her life together now began to signal that she was living by rules a younger generation no longer wished to follow, and so, slowly and without any single dramatic moment, the change took hold. The weekly set loosened its grip on women's lives. Fewer standing appointments were kept. The great dryer domes ran less often, and then fell silent, and the clouds of lacquer thinned in the air. The salons did not vanish, but they changed, adapting to hair that was cut rather than constructed, washed at home rather than maintained by a professional hand. An entire way of life quietly wound down. The towering hairstyles of 1963 drifted gently into memory, becoming a symbol of their moment rather than a fixture of everyday life. And there is something fitting in that soft ending. No dramatic collapse, just a gradual fading, the way most eras actually end. The bouffant had its glorious reign, and then it yielded gracefully enough to whatever came next, leaving behind only photographs, fond recollections, and the faint imagined scent of hairspray drifting down through the years. So there you have it. A single afternoon in the 1960s beauty salon survived at last. You endured the neck-snapping sink and the roaring dryer dome. You sat perfectly still while a stranger teased your hair into a violent cloud and then smoothed it into a monument. You held your breath through clouds of lacquer, blink back tears through perm fumes and peroxide, and offered up individual eyebrow hairs to the cause. You wore the girdle that would not let you bend, breathed air that no modern building would allow, and trusted a comb that had passed through several heads before yours. And then you wrapped the whole creation in toilet paper and slept like a very tense corpse. All to buy your hairstyle one more precious day. It was uncomfortable. It was expensive. It was, by any sensible measure, faintly absurd. And yet the women who lived it did so week after week, with patience and good humour and a quiet solidarity, finding in that smoky pink room not just a hairstyle, but a rhythm, a refuge, and a place that was entirely their own. So tonight, as you drift off with your hair loose on the pillow, free to fall however it likes, spare a kind thought for them, for the women who sat beneath those domes and endured all of it, who turned suffering into glamour and glamour into a weekly ritual, who held their heads high, quite literally, through fumes and neck pain and the tyranny of the set. Because history, even in its silliest corners, is really just people trying to feel a little more beautiful, a little more together, a little more themselves, and that, in the end, is rather lovely. Sleep well, and be grateful quietly that you can simply wash your hair and go to bed.